My life was perfect and peaceful. I had a loving family and friends, along with my loving wife, Lisa. We had just been married, and we were still very much newlyweds. We'd also been dating for 5 years before that, deciding to buy a house together and focus on ourselves, also to start a family. With little effort, we managed to find a perfect house for us. The house was huge and beautiful. Also, we got it at a very reasonable price. We were both satisfied with our new place and soon moved in. It was a half-furnished house since the previous owners didn't take all of their belongings with them. The house was relatively old, but beautiful nonetheless. It had that charm that old houses do. Lisa and I took a week off from work and spent our time rearranging, buying, and decorating our new house. With a little bit of money, work, and effort, the place became as comfortable as any other place to live. Soon, my holidays were over and I started working again. Because of the holidays I took, I had to work a bit extra to cover up the pending task at my table. Because of that, I started coming back home late at night. My wife would already be asleep at that time, since she too had to get up early. A few days passed by and I couldn't help but notice the chilling cold as I entered the house. It wasn't like that the first week we lived there. It was too cold to be in summer. So my conclusion was that the air conditioner wasn't functioning properly, or Lisa had them blasting on purpose. Before I could ask Lisa about it, she beat me right to it and asked me the same thing, and I told her no. The weekend came, so I hired someone to check our air conditioners, and they told me they were functioning properly. Not being able to get to the bottom of it, I spent the rest of my day relaxing and spending time with Lisa. She told me about how she's been exploring the house, the attic, and told me about the things she's found for decorating the place. Next, she excitedly ran towards the guest room and came out holding a frame in her hand. She turned it towards me, and the moment I saw it, something in my stomach twisted and fear settled in my heart. It seemed to be a normal painting of a couple, except the girl figure sitting on a swing in a garden while being pushed by the male figure was faceless. Something about it seemed so unsettling and horrifying. Lisa told me about how she had found the painting in the attic and absolutely loved it. She had always been a great art fan and had decorated almost the entire house with different paintings. I listened to her going on and on about the painting, interpreting its meaning and technique. I didn't want to spoil her mood just because the painting creeped me out. I tried my best to avoid looking at the painting, but it was hard since Lisa hung it in the corridor. A few days passed, and I had brought out my big comforter since it was cold enough, though it was midsummer. That night, I had a dream about someone walking around in my room before standing in front of my bed, staring at me while I was stuck in the bed, unable to move or speak. The dark figure just stood there, staring at me, its dull golden eyes sparkling in the dark. I could see its ugly, distorted face. I desperately tried moving, but couldn't. I watched its hands as it slowly lifted up and pointed towards me and screamed. But the scream wasn't human. It was more of an animal yelp. I jolted up in my bed, panting with sweat. I quickly turned on my side lamp and looked around to find nothing out of the ordinary. I couldn't help but to feel as if I had been marked. Lisa was still sleeping peacefully next to me. A few days passed by in a flash. With each passing day, I became more and more tired. I hadn't been able to sleep properly. Every night since that day, I had been having sleep paralysis, and every time that happened, I saw the same man from the painting, only it was more demonic. With every passing day, the figure became closer and closer to me, or so I thought. One night, as we were getting ready to sleep, I took a shower and walked into the bedroom. Lisa was standing in front of the dressing table, brushing her hair. I moved closer to hug her, but stopped dead in my tracks. The reflection I saw in the mirror wasn't my gentle, beautiful wife. Instead, I saw the same demonic face that I had been seeing in my dreams. Shaken up, I stumbled back, almost falling. Lisa turned around, looking at me with a confused look. I wasn't even sure anymore that it was really Lisa. "Anything wrong, hun?" she asked. "No, baby. Everything's fine," I replied. And then she was walking towards me. My heart started to beat faster, and I took a step back. Lisa was really confused at this time, and then she hugged me. I was really uncomfortable and scared. I looked into the mirror behind her and I gasped, pushing her away. I saw the back of the old woman with greasy white hair with a dirty torn gown. I was really scared. "What's wrong, babe?" she asked as I walked out of the house. I went for a walk and was thinking about what was going on with her, or if I'm just going crazy. As time progressed, I began to notice more and more of character changes in Lisa. I would randomly see that demonic figure in her reflections. I noticed the blue marks on her body, and the darkest one was around her neck. I was so caught up with my work and strange dreams that I didn't notice what was happening to her until I was too late. Unbelievably as it was, I was convinced that there was something wrong with that painting. I began visiting old libraries and started looking for any information I could find on that painting. And I did. This wasn't the only painting like this one. These paintings were painted by the artist hired by rich people. It was custom in old days that whenever a young, unmarried member of their family died, they used to pay artists to paint the deceased and a faceless partner. Later, the family would choose a bride or a groom, and using black magic, they would kill him or her so the soul would be trapped in the painting along with the deceased rich family member. It was a ghost marriage, and I realized that the man that was trapped in the painting still hadn't found a wife, and now it was after my wife. Horrified, I kept reading, searching for ways to save Lisa. I now understood the dark marks around her neck. She was slowly being strangled. The only way to save her was to find another bride for the dead groom. But judging by how dark the marks were, deep in my heart, I knew it was now too late. I went back home and looked at my wife. Now she wasn't the Lisa I had married by looks, nor by personality. I just looked at her and started crying because I really loved her, and now she's not her anymore, and I cannot save her. That night, I was laying in my bed sideways trying to sleep, but couldn't as there were a lot of things going on in my head. A thought ran around my mind. What if I destroy the painting by burning it? That way, the deceased member of the family might die, and it'll leave my wife alone. If not that, maybe the black magic would weaken or the curse would be broken. I was actually thinking of doing so. I got out of bed, wore my slippers, and then went out of the room. I stood in the corridor opposite of the painting. Chills ran down my spine while I was looking at it. I took the painting off and took it downstairs. I took some flammable fuel along with a matchbox and was heading towards the backyard. "What are you doing?" I heard a known voice behind me. That's when I froze in my steps. I looked back to find Lisa. "Nothing, babe. I'm just looking for a better spot to hang this painting," I replied.
"Give it to me."
Lisa yelled in a demonic voice, and I handed the painting to her. She then kissed my cheeks and took it back upstairs. I was still downstairs, but then I went upstairs. I peeked into my room to find her sleeping peacefully in bed. I went into the corridor, took the painting to the guest room. I locked the bathroom door and put it in the bathtub. I spilled the fuel onto the frame and lit it on fire. I was watching it burn peacefully when all of a sudden I heard the fire alarm buzzing. I opened the door and rushed to my room to find Lisa's body burning in bed. I noticed the same demon with golden eyes standing in the corner of the room staring at Lisa. "Lisa!" I yelled when someone grabbed me from behind and took me out of the house. It was the neighbors. We had given them a spare key back when we went on vacation, but didn't take it back. They saved my life, and I watched my whole house burn into ashes, along with my wife. I could see the demon standing in the window of my room, staring at me. I started crying and the neighbor hugged me. The guilt of killing my wife might kill me someday.